Now, here he is. He's going to speak to you guys today. So it's my pleasure to welcome Frank Nelson.
Let me first start off by saying I'm really humbled by all the great comments, but behind what I do is an absolute huge team of sponsors, volunteers, people who feel like me that we benefit far more from helping others than the people we actually help. And so one of the messages I want to leave with you today is, it's not about me. What I do, I hope many others, I know many others do, and I hope that one day in society, things like this just aren't the exception. They aren't special. It's just something everybody does. So I wanted to preface my presentation by just making those comments. It is not about me. It is about what can you do in society to make a difference. And I believe me when I tell you the rewards you receive are far better than anybody else receives. So I just want to start off with that. So I wanted to talk briefly about where we're at now. It's really in today's society, there's a lot going on, and it seems to me it's becoming harsher and harsher. The daily grind of making ends meet for so many people, is just outstanding. And until you actually get involved at the grassroots level of some of the initiatives, you then realize just how difficult for so many people things are. Okay, so now talk about my life journey a little bit, but what I really want to emphasize today is your life journey. We'll talk a bit about mine, but really there's a few takeaways I want you to go away with at the end of this presentation. And the first one is, I found this poem by Robert Smith, and this is in abridged form, but it talks about the clock of life. Every one of us has a clock of life. That clock gets wound once. And once it's wound once, none of us know when those hands are going to stop. And the only thing we have right now that we can guarantee is the time of now, the power of now. So my suggestion is, understand that in your life journey, we all have our own clock of life, and it's important that you live your life with strong conviction, things you believe in, and with a strong sense of will. It's really, really important, because we don't know when that clock stops. None of us. It's different for all of us. The second thing I'd like you to take away is, and I found this late in life, really find out what's most meaningful and gives you purpose in life. It doesn't have to be specifically what I do, and I'll bet you it's different for many people in this room. But whatever it is, seek it out. Find out what makes you so passionate that you can't wait to get up in the morning. You can't wait to get out and do what you're going to do to make a difference in your life and in the lives of many others. So that's the other important thing. And then finally, life is a journey, but we can make our own path. We're going to run into some obstacles, some bumps in the roads, that's for sure. But it is a journey, and I suggest to you, make your own path. So those are some of the takeaways. One of the other things that I was really astounded by was Barack Obama's statement, the 44th President of the United States. He said, the moments of human connection are the most meaningful in life. This is the President of the United States who has seen more glamour, who has seen more things that most people in human life will never see. And yet he believes the human connection is one of the most meaningful things in life. And I agree with him. Now, when I talk about human life connection, I'm not talking about tweets, texts, emails, phone calls, Instagrams. The ability for us to communicate is unprecedented. We have so many enabling tools, and yet what I see more and more is less human interaction, less face-to-face meetings. And really, the texts and the tweets and all that can be important in some instances, but let me just say to you, when my life is near the end, I'm not going to look back and go, Davis and I, man, we had some cool tweets. It was awesome. Like, he was the greatest tweeter I've ever seen. And wow, those phone calls with Wendy, they were awesome. Those are the kind of things that you're not going to reflect on. So what are you going to reflect on? You're going to reflect on the birth of your child, getting married, helping that person down the street go do some grocery shopping. You're going to remember the human touch elements of life. It's not going to be all these gadgets. And just before I go any further, how many people have one of these today here? How many don't have them? Exactly, how many don't have them? Now, I just got to say to you, I'm going to set this down for a second. How many go like this? I mean, I watch people in coffee shops and down the street. Like, how many people do texting like this? When you're doing that like this, I want you to think about people like me who are trying to respond like this, right? Because I'll tell you, one day my daughter was going like this, and she had 5 texts in before I even got the first one finished. And so I yelled to her up in her bedroom. I said, Cindy, why don't you just come down to the living room and we'll have a chat, right? So that's the point I'm trying to make. It's the human element of things that are most important in life. And I do understand that the importance of doing all these other things, but it's something I just don't want you to forget. Because when it comes time, those are the things you're going to cherish. Those are the things you're going to remember. Okay, we'll talk a little bit about me, not too much. The first slide, in fact, covers the first 54 years of my life. I was born in Toronto. Low-income area in Toronto. In fact, if you look at that picture, my house was the one on your left, sorry, and that's after it was renovated. So I was raised in a very low-income neighborhood. Now, I was very fortunate. My family was fortunate because my grandfather was somewhat successful in business, and he moved in to help us cover all the bills. So even though we were in a low-income family, we really didn't go wanting for a lot of things, and so we consider ourselves extremely fortunate. My dad was a laborer. He started out as a laborer, worked his way up as a warehouse manager. My mother stayed at home, which was great for us because nowadays, moms or dads who have the possibility of staying home is very rare. I mean, you need 2 incomes now just to kind of support your life. I was really bad at school for the first 12 years. I was one that would sit in the back. And by the way, the faculties told me, there's a quiz for anybody that's sitting in the back at the end of this, so if you're sitting up there. So I was bad. I was a class clown. I didn't focus. Gym and lunch were my best attributes, for sure. And then I met a teacher in grade 13, and I know you don't have grade 13 anymore, but we did back then. My grade 13 teacher opened my eyes to the world. He motivated me, he inspired me, and because of him, I redirected my energy and my focus, and I applied myself in school. I went on to the University of Toronto in engineering the first term, started talking about vector analysis and calculus and all this stuff, and I went, I don't think this is for me. So I left school, and I went out and worked full-time. And when I worked full-time, I had in the back of my mind that school was still extremely important, and I always wanted to get back to it, and so I did. My brother and sister, my brother's a former police officer. He's now has his own security company in Toronto. My sister lives in Kansas City with her husband. Now, I got married in 1978 to my wife, Ruth. Just before we got married, I'd worked long enough to put a down payment on the house, and so we were fortunate to move in the house just before we got married, actually. Went back to school. Took me 12 years part-time to get my BA. And then when I turned 40, I still knew it was a learning process, a life learning process. I went back to school, and I finished my MBA at the University of Western Ontario, Richard Ivey School of Business. Now, my career, I did really well in my career. I was 30 years in business. I achieved very high levels in companies. I was making a really big 6 salary figure. In 2010, I was on top of the world. And somebody once said, money can't buy happiness. And I think the person that said that probably didn't have a lot of money. Because money can buy some happiness, but almost always it's short-lived. You get the new car, and then you get a scratch on it, and you go, or you buy something else new. So money can bring you temporary satisfaction and happiness. But I can tell you, it doesn't fulfill you. It really doesn't, unless you apply it in certain ways. So after 30 years in business, doing successful, I had a 5-bedroom house in Barrie. My daughters went to figure skating at Mariposa. It was very expensive. We were living the life. We go out dining out 3 or 4 times a week. And then it kind of came crashing down for me. And to go back to the clock of life, I actually, my hands didn't stop, but boy, the alarm sure went off. In 2010, I was diagnosed with colorectal cancer. 3 weeks prior to that, my mother was diagnosed with brain cancer. And in that year, in September particularly of 2010, was probably the toughest year. It was the toughest year for me and my family. In the course of 13 days, we lost 3 family members, a very close aunt, on September 15th. My mother passed away on September 25th. And my father-in-law passed away on September 28th. That was the day of my first surgery. After all the tests, they determined that they would do surgery. So it was a really rough year, and particularly a really rough September. In 2011, I went on. I had chemotherapy. I had radiation treatments. It was about 9 months of treatments. And then in August, they told me I was in remission. So I said, great. I went back to work, started doing what I did before. And then in 2013, it was October the 3rd, our little business, I'd worked for president of a private company. They had to restructure the company, and I was laid off. And then 4 weeks to the day, I was told the cancer come back. This time it had come back, but it had metastasized. It had gone into my pelvic area, and they said they could no longer cure me. Now, during this time, I had gone through a number of clinical trials at the Stronach Cancer Center in Newmarket. Again, I'd gone through extensive treatment. But one of the things that always kind of was in the back of my mind is the wonderful people I met along this tough journey in that year. Nurses, some of the most phenomenal people I've ever met in my life, doctors and friends calling me and saying, gee, we've heard you're having a rough time. And it was those friendships and all that love that came through that got me through that tough year, along with my family, great support from my family. So, I'm out of work, and so I got my family together, and I said, here's what I want to do. I've had enough of work. I'm not going to work. I'm going to create a bucket list. Now, my bucket list is going to be focused on helping others in need. And so I got them all together, and I said, the first thing I want to do, my 2 daughters were there and my wife, I said, I want to take $1,000 and I want to give it to a complete stranger. And my younger daughter said, Dad, are you crazy? Is the chemo getting to you? I'll take the $1,000. She said it jokingly. So she said, well, why don't we put it on Facebook? Because I wanted it to be a stranger. I wanted just to pick somebody and help them out. So we did that. My daughter set up a Facebook group called Paying It Back. We then advertised out. And in the first 2 weeks, we had 400 members, and I had 38 submissions. Stories that were so moving. It was difficult to even pick one. There were so many people that were in need. But we did. We picked a lady named Casey Bigley. She was the first one we given $1,000 to. She's a hairdresser, 2 children, had a very difficult upbringing. Her parents were both alcoholics. She forgave them later on in life and actually helped her mom and dad go through some tough times. She would actually do family and friends' hair on the weekends just to cover her rent. So that was where the $1,000 went. So I was happy with that. My little bucket list, I checked it off. That one's done. Let's see what else we're going to do. And then something absolutely unforeseen and amazing happened. All these companies and friends, my brother owns a security company, called me and said, Frank, I heard what you did. I want to be part of it. Here's $1,000. And another business associate started calling me and said, wow, we thought that was great. Here's another $1,000. So the money starts coming in. Okay. So the money starts coming in. Now I go, wow, my little bucket list, I got too much money for my little bucket list. I got to go back and redo this thing. So I went back. I said, well, we did one family. The way the money's coming in, I want to do 50. So we set a goal of 50. And we set a few other goals, but that was the one that seemed to capture the imagination and interest in the media. You know, here's this guy, he's in rough shape, and he's, like David said, he's some guy dying giving away money, so let's go and talk to him. And it was far beyond that. I mean, when David finally found the story, it was way beyond that. So the bucket list got really big. And we started doing all this. It even got to the point where I met a guy who was, basically, he would admit that he was a transient. He was going from one place to the other, nowhere to live. Very talented musically. Bumped into him and said, you know, what are you up to? He said, well, I'd like to get my music company going back. So I was in San Diego at the time visiting my older daughter who lives there. And we conversed back and forth. Yes, we text and stuff. We didn't meet face to face. But I said, look, why don't we, I got this idea for some lyrics about my bucket list my journey over the last 2.5 years. Why don't we write a song? So we wrote a song. He created the song, I wrote the lyrics. And the song's called Hope It To Be. It does talk about hardships in life. It's a bit of a ballad, and it's available on iTunes. And here's the plug. It's available on iTunes and Google Play. It's 99 cents, and all the money goes to sick kids. So if you get a chance, check it out. So there was my bucket list. It started growing and growing. So I went out. Met people from Newfoundland all the way to British Columbia and in between. Got submissions, met with some families, handed out some money. Some of it was $1,000. Some of it was a shopping trip. We actually had a shopping cart contest at the Target store when it was in Barrie for 2 families to help them out through back to school time. And so the list started growing, and this is just a small sample of the people that I've met on my bucket list journey over the last almost, well, I guess 3 years now. Not only that, I didn't plan on this either. I started to meet some other people, grassroots organizations, and there's a couple of them in here, and I recognize a couple of you already, Linda and Tom, who were doing amazing stuff as well, just as amazing as I was doing. So I started linking up with them. And really, it became an informal network. It was an informal network to say, what are you doing? How can we help you? How can we help each other? So we worked together on a lot of that stuff. And I got to meet a couple of celebrities, too. We had an October 15 fundraiser. And I had 3 celebrities that offered to come up and help us raise some funds. Wendell Clark, former captain of Toronto, I believe. Wyatt Buffy, who was an internationally renowned surfer when he was a lot younger, and then Kelly Graham, who's one of the Canadians' top CrossFit champions. So fascinating people, great time. I'm living my dream, I really am. I'm living my dream at this point. Also along the way, I got to meet people who became my heroes. And I'm only going to show you 2, but there are a bunch of them. This girl here, Kayla Johnson, lives in Barrie. She has 2 rare disorders. They're so rare that there's only about 20 people in North America who have what she has. She has MSA and EDS. I can't even explain to you the complexity of them. She feeds herself through a tube. That's how she eats every day. She feeds herself through a tube in her stomach. This young lady, every year, raises funds through a number of fundraising events and donates it to the Starlight Foundation, which is almost like a Make-A-Wish for children or even adults in some cases. So she's one of my heroes. Another one of my heroes you may have seen before, Nicole Marchand. Nicole Marchand was diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of 28. It metastasized, and it spread rapidly, and all through this, the only thing she focused on was being an ambassador for screening for women for breast cancer, putting on a positive note, always asking how you were, and never complained about herself. Really was recognized in our House of Commons in Ottawa as being a true Canadian hero. I got to meet these people. These people are my heroes. And there are others. I could go through the list. There's several others I could mention. So here I am. The bucket list is almost done. We've done 43 families of the 50. We have 7 more to go. I'm thinking to myself, there's got to be something else. So I did what probably many of you have done. I started to do some research on charity foundations and social needs, social requirements in our society. And part of that research came out of Stats Canada, and 2 things kind of jumped out at me with this research. First one I kind of knew. People give on emotion and compassion. They really do. But it's also important that when they give to some organization or cause they believe in. So I thought, well, helping out people and doing what we do is, I think, warrants that kind of support. Second thing is, I don't know if you know this site, but it's called Charity Intelligence Canada. It's a website. It's a nonprofit. You can make a donation, but it provides you with extensive research on any kind of charity across Canada. You can find it all. They do an analytical study on who does what, how your dollars are spent. The thing that surprised me is there's more than 83,000 charities in Canada. I was shocked. That's a lot of charities. We know the big ones. Boy, I had no idea it was that big. The other important piece of information that came out of here when I was thinking about what can I do next is the fact that when you look at metrics, social return on investment. Now, I have a finance background, so I know what return on investment is, but social return on investment, what is that? And basically it says for every dollar you donate to an organization, how much social value do they give back to society? And you'd be shocked when you go and look at the top 10 from Charity Intelligence Canada, the overall majority of them are grassroots organizations. They're not the big ones. They're the Tom Chapmans and Patching the Past. They're the Linda Goodalls and the Lighthouse. There are other local grassroots organizations who take very limited resources and have huge benefit to society. So with all that information, and also there was a fact that said 76% of Canadians donate stuff, because we all have a lot of stuff. I thought, well, if people are donating stuff, let me research further. And there's a number of organizations that do collect donations, and then they put them out in their stores and they sell them. But I thought, well, I had met with a lady back when I was networking with grassroots organizations. Her name is Sharon Williamson. She's a Hamilton police officer, and she started an organization called Hamilton Helps the Homeless. And when I went to see her just before Christmas one time, I was astounded. This lady had collected all kinds of donated stuff, trucks full of stuff. And then on a given day, she went into a public parking lot. She took all of this stuff, blew tarps out, and she just spread it all out. And I can tell you, hundreds of people were coming to get this stuff. And so it really tweaked me. I said, now I know what I want to do. I want to take what Sharon started in Hamilton. I want to formalize it a little bit more. And I want to be able to help others that are trying to stretch their budget dollars. You could be two people working with children, you just can't afford to make ends meet. So we started a pilot project, because I came from a business background. I said, well, I got to have a proof of concept. I got to see if this thing really works. So in the summer, we rented some space on a temporary basis for 6 months. We were only open the first and third weekend of each month. And during that time, we had 2,711 people go through that center. And we gave away over 24,000 items, all for free. People said, well, how can you do that? How can it be for free? What about your costs? We did raise some funds through events. We've had a couple other sponsors who stepped up and donated. But what really was telling for me, for every dollar we had donated by sponsors, $18.70 worth of economic or social value went back into the community, back into people who really needed it. Didn't have to come in. You can imagine the look on a person's face. They walk into a place. Victoria, who runs our team of volunteers at our Barrie location, you walk in, you look around, there's all kinds of stuff. There's toys, there's clothing, there's household items, there's skates for kids. You walk in, the first thing you're told is, help yourself, it's all free. And if you need any hand with certain things, our volunteers will be happy to help you. I mean, you don't even get that kind of service sometimes when you go to the places you pay for. Volunteers in Victoria just do an absolute magnificent job. So we opened our first permanent location in Barrie after the pilot project was so successful. We opened it on January the 7th. The first Wednesday after we opened, 164 people went through that center. 941 items went out, mainly clothing, a lot of it children's, some other household items and stuff, but that shows you the great need in this community. So with that kind of information, we then said, okay, well, August 19th, we became a nonprofit organization. And then December 1st, let's say we signed our lease, we opened on the 7th. We've now filed for registered charity status, which basically means you can issue tax receipts once you get the approval. And we are launching a website next Monday. Now the website, it's called Bidding Owl, Glowing Hearts Community Give and Get. We receive a lot of items from business. We receive a lot of donated items from people that allow us to put on the website. We only put on the website for auction items that we've received approval for. We won't take free items that are designated free and put them on the auction without permission. We put on the auction at $1. Now some of the items, we have $25 gift cards. We have a $230 Star Wars collectible model. We have 30 items already. We're launching a week Monday. And the idea behind this is 100% of that money goes to pay our rent, utilities, hydro, insurance, some of the other things we have to pay. But it also will enable some people to get things that otherwise could not afford. For example, we have bowling for 6 for 1 hour. Starting bid $1. So that kicks off on Monday. If you're interested, we can give you more information how you can register and start the bidding process. We now have a board. As I say, all our members, Victoria and her team, all donate their time. All of us do. And here, again, here's how we raise the funds. The Bidding Owl, if you go onto the Community Give and Get home Facebook page, you can click on there and then register, just so you'll be able to look at the items and start bidding. Here's some of the photos of dozens and dozens we have of people that have gone through the center. There's what it looks like. If you click on the link, it'll take you to here. That lady over there, her name's Violet. She's 83 years old. She comes into the center regularly to shop for her 82-year-old brother, who's in the hospital. He broke his hip. So there's what the site looks at. Okay. And then if you can, I'm going to wrap up now. I'm going to back up a little bit before David does the video. I'm going to circle back and tell you the battle with cancer has been very tough. It's been 6.5 years. And although the cancer's been kept at bay, I have 6 years of complications. I've had almost 70 chemo treatments over that 6.5 years. And some of the complications are what they call peripheral neuropathy. I have it in my hands and feet. It's a tingling numbness that never goes away. You always feel cold at your ends, your feet and hands. I've had 4 surgeries. I have to have another one very soon. I'm a little moving gingerly now because I have another hernia above my abdomen. I have a huge hernia on the left side. It's the size of a small football, which has to be operated on. My teeth have become soft because of the extensive chemo treatment, so I've cracked 2 of them. My taste buds, I can't taste food the way I used to be able to taste it. I have a real problem with my tailbone because of the scar tissue from some of the surgeries. And I'm not telling you this to make you feel sorry for me. I'm one of the luckiest people alive. I shouldn't even be standing here today. I'm blessed. I'm so fortunate to be in the position that I am today. The reason why I'm telling you this, you'll understand. We all have challenges. Mine just happen to be physical, medical. But I guarantee you, we all have them. Some of you may have a relationship challenge. Some of you may have a financial challenge. Some of you may have some other challenge that we're not aware of. But everybody in life faces roadblocks and challenges. It's how you handle those challenges and moving forward that really matters. And so I'm going to ask David to cue up the video. And you'll understand why I'm telling you about my limitations when you see what crazy idea I have next. Hi, my name is Frank Nelson. I'm 60 years old, and for the past 6.5 years, I've been battling colon cancer. 3 years ago, the doctors told me a cure was no longer possible, so I decided to create a bucket list focusing on helping others in need. The life experiences and pure joy from doing this has given me some of the greatest moments in my life. I've met many new friends and received so much love and support from so many. Ready?
Sorry.
I want to see the kids do it.
There we go.
Oh!
Come on, come on.
Oh, hard.
One of my last bucket list initiatives is to fulfill a vision. My dream is to open community give and get centers across this great country of ours. These centers provide free clothing, shoes, boots, children's toys, household items, and much more from community donations to anybody who needs them. This helps remove some of the financial burden of shelter poverty and other rising living costs. I can achieve this dream by raising funds to open up these centers. Therefore, I'm going to be traveling from coast to coast on an e-bike to raise awareness and funds to open up these centers so we can help Canadians everywhere. To prepare for this, I've been working with Joel, my personal trainer at the YMCA, to build my strength and stamina. With the continuous support of my family, friends, and consent of my medical team, we are planning to launch the campaign late spring, early summer from Charlottetown, PEI. To accomplish this, I really need your help. Join us on our team. Give us your ideas on a slogan. Become a sponsor or help us raise funds, and tell your friends and spread the word. Please join me on this vision that will help so many. Thank you. So there you have it, the cat's out of the bag. I really want to open up the floor if anybody has any questions or answers. I don't know if we're okay for time. I guess we're okay. So if anybody has any questions, sure.
What is an e-bike?
An e-bike, well, it's a bike with a motor on it, but the motor doesn't engage so you start pedaling. And these e-bikes can go top speed 20, 25 kilometers an hour. My goal is to try and do 125 kilometers a day, which is 5 hours on a bike. It takes 67 days to go from Charlottetown to Vancouver. Now that doesn't take into account weather. It doesn't take into account maybe I'm having a bad day, because I do have them, and it doesn't take into account I'll have to take 3 treatments along the way of chemotherapy en route. I've arranged it with my oncologist, who, I told my wife this, and she said, she felt my forehead. And she said, you are kidding, right? And I said, no. And she said, well, I said, I'll tell you what, if my oncologist will agree to me doing this, will you go along with it? Because she's obviously concerned. So she didn't trust me. She came with me to see my oncologist that day. And so I started letting him, the cat out of the bag, a little lightly, and said, well, yeah, I'm thinking of doing an e-bike trip. He says, oh yeah. He said, and to your question, how does that work? So I explained it to him, and I said, well, I kind of like to go a long way. He said, well, how far? And so I told him, and he said, you know what, if we can keep you stable, if we can get your regimen of treatment along the way, I'll arrange for all that. I don't see why, unless something changes in the next 4 months, and it can. I mean, I go from CT scan to CT scan. If nothing else changes, I don't see why you can't. So I've gotten his blessing so far, and we're going to do that. It's not even raising the money, because I'm so passionate about the community give and get. If you could see the look on people's faces when children come in with their parents and they come out with toys and they've got clothes for their kids, and you know that now they can buy more food or they can pay their rent. That is all the reward I need, and I know that's all the reward our volunteers need, right? A couple of people here volunteer their time. So that's really what matters to me. Not only that, I'm going to have some pretty interesting life experiences along the way, I imagine. So, yes.
Quick question: the Give and Get Center, do they accept donations like from public, or you can drop donations off?
Absolutely. The center's open Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, 10 till 4 to the public. And that's when you can bring in your donations. If you go on our Community Give and Get page, Facebook page, you can see what items we take and what items we can't. There's certain items we can't take. But absolutely, we take donations. During the off hours, the non-Wednesday, Friday, and Saturdays that we're open to the public, we also book appointments for organizations. And we were very honored to have gotten a call last week from the Barrie Police asking if they could put us on their list. So if they have a spousal abuse situation, or they have a family who's lost everything in a fire, could they then refer them to us? And we're honored to be able to provide that service. We're honored to be able to do it for Sarah and the Busby Center, and Linda when we come to Orillia, because I didn't tell you that part. We're in Barrie now. Our next stop, we want to go to is Orillia. The third one we want to go to is Hamilton, and then the fourth one, North Bay. So we're hoping we can get 3 or 4 of these up and running in the next year and a half. Any other questions anybody has? Yep.
On your e-bike trip, you said you were going from PEI to Vancouver.
Right.
Is there any reason you picked that route?
Well, we haven't finalized the route yet, but
Just, I think from going from there to that destination.
well, we thought of starting in Newfoundland. However, some of my dear friends there said the terrain and the distance between cities and you probably could spend a month just on the island. So we thought it made more sense to start in Charlottetown, PEI. We don't have the exact route yet, but I'm actually, the CAA has stepped up. They're going to provide secondary routes because we don't want to be on my e-bike going along the 401. Right. It's also illegal. I was waiting for that response. So we're working on secondary routes to make sure that we minimize any disruption. And again, that's all of the planning that's going to go on over the next 4 or 5 months. Yep.
Do you think, like, I know you said you don't have to finalize this, but do you think, like, there'll be a chance of you passing through Barrie or Orillia?
Absolutely. Would never miss passing through Barrie and Orillia. I live in Barrie. I've been there 20 years. It's my home. It'll definitely be part of the route. Any other questions?
Frank?
I can't see. Oh, I'm sorry.
I just wonder if you're going to track yourself across Canada so people can see when you're passing.
It's a great question. My friend John's here somewhere. Where's John hiding?
Right in front of you.
John's right here. You can see how much I pay attention to John. John's joining me. We're planning on doing a little bit of a documentary, and partly why I want to do that is I want to inspire other cancer patients to say, you know what, dream big, go big. So it's a bit of an inspiration as well. So John will be joining me. We're looking, in the ideal world, we'd like to have somebody, some kind of medical background with me so they can help out. So we're working through the team right now, but John and I are it right now. Yeah.
Yeah, based on that, thank you very much. You've been a great inspiration for my family. My dad went through colon cancer, and we followed you along the way too, so thank you so much for that. You really helped our family.
Oh, well, that's great. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you. Appreciate that. That's very nice of you to say that. Yeah.
Pleasure.
That's my reward. You can't put a value on that kind of comment, and I thank you so much. I'm very, very nice. Any other questions anybody has? Other than asking me to take a sanity test? Oh, thank you.
You're an angel.
Yeah. Well, let me just say again, I am so blessed, and when my time comes, my life journey comes close to an end, I have got so many great memories and life experiences that I've met. I've met hundreds of people in the last 3 years. And so there's nobody more blessed or privileged than me. I've gotten far more benefit out of what I've done than anybody that I've tried to help out. So, and you know what? Every single one of you in this room, I know I should be thanking the faculty and David for arranging today in your Center for Social Entrepreneurship. But every single one of you can find out what you're passionate about. Again, getting back to the things I said about your journey. What really are you passionate about? What would make you get up in the morning and just be so excited? And it may take you a while to find it. For me, it took a major catastrophic event to kind of figure it all out. And it may not be what I'm doing, or it may not be involving helping people. It could be something totally different. But find out what it is and chase it with all your might. Any other questions? Oh, great. Well, thank you so much for allowing me to come and share my story with you.